Jan Stenerud is an NFL Hall of Famer, a Super Bowl champion, a 6-time All-Pro selection, 4-time Pro Bowler, a member of the NFL's 75th and 100th anniversary teams, and one of just 4 former Bobcat players to have his number retired and immortalized on the walls of Bobcat Stadium. But none of that would have ever happened if he didn't decide to come out on the field one day during his junior year at MSU and kick a couple field goals for fun with his friend.
Okay, so I know you were recruited as a skier to come here. Can you walk me through kind of the process of you joining the football team?
Yes. Part of my workout for the ski team, I had that ski jumping was, they don't have that anymore in the NCAAs, but that was my main sport. I had the second longest ski jump in the junior nationals in Norway in 1962 and had some good finishes. And so I was recruited to come to the greatest country on earth. And so part of the workout for the skiing, I had to do cross country too, which I didn't like. And I ran the stadium steps quite a bit. The stadium isn't the same as it is now, but it was still, the football stadium seated about 8,000–9,000. Not only running the step, they jump on one leg and then on both legs. So that's a good workout for skiers. We used to do that. So one day, my junior year, I was running the steps, and the kicker on the football team was down there kicking field goals. And they kicked with a toe like everybody kicked in those days. And I went down there, his name was Dale Jackson. I said, Dale, I played soccer my whole life. I haven't kicked the ball in 3–4 years. I just feel like kicking the ball. So I tried a few with the toe, and then said, can you kick with the side of your foot? Like you take a corner kick or in soccer. I said, yeah, you can. There's a player for the Buffalo Bills called Pete Gogolak. And that was his first year, by the way, first time soccer style had been used in pro football. So I kicked a few, and I did that 3 or 4 times. Well, what I didn't know, the basketball coach here, the head basketball coach, his name was Roger Kraft, he had seen me several times. And he also talked to the football coach about me without me even knowing about it. And said, there's a Norwegian skier out there. I think, you need to take a look at him. He kicks the football. It looks like he goes a really long ways. So he didn't pay that much attention to it, but before the last football game in 1964, the same year, junior year, I was running the stadium steps, had a light workout in the stadium on the Friday, day before the game. And all of a sudden I heard a booming voice of the football coach yelling something like, hey, skier, get down here. Here you can kick. So I'd never kicked off before, never put a ball in the tee before. And they lined me up on the 40-yard line, a slight breeze behind me, I remember. Didn't know how many steps to take. It was a break in the practice. The guys were having a little bit of fun. And so I kind of topped the first one, dribbled down the field like a squib kick. And the coach said, try another one. And I hit it. And he went through the goalpost and into the seats. And he was quiet. And I kicked it into the seats again. And the football players started hollering. And so that was the beginning. And the coach, Jim Sweeney, put his hand on my shoulder and he said, young man, what are you doing tomorrow morning? And I knew he was talking about probably football, pre-game meal or whatever, but I wasn't eligible. But he wanted me to suit up for the last home game to get used to the crowd. I didn't tell him, but I thought to myself, I ski jumped in Norway in front of 80,000 people. That was before television. And so 8,000 wouldn't bother me a heck of a lot, I didn't think. But anyway, that's how it got started.
Was it a hard decision for you to stop skiing and focus on football?
Well, I did finish my, I got on the football team the first year, so I went after that. That was the last home game of my junior year, so I went out for spring practice and made the team, and then had a good year and kicked a then record 59-yard field goal against the Grizzlies in '65. So I did ski the next winter. That was my senior year. And of course, the fall comes before winter. So that was my senior year in the football team. So I finished my senior year on the ski team. And I did that. But in the meantime, though, before the ski season started, I already had gotten a telegram from the Kansas City Chiefs that I'd been drafted as a future draft choice. Obviously, the draft was completely different from nowadays. So before the ski season started, Coach Sweeney had explained to me what that means. I think you're changing sport. We can redshirt you is what they call it. So you can. I want you on the football team one more full quarter. We had the quarter system then. So So he said, I think I have a good chance to become a pro. And I thought to myself, and I asked him, I mean, a pro, you mean you get paid for just kicking the ball? And he said, yes, I think you have a chance. So I stayed on the team, or stayed in school, one more fall quarter, had a decent year, and then also got drafted. I'd been drafted by the Chiefs as a future draft choice the year before, right after the season. And then after the next season, then I was drafted by the Atlanta Falcons or the NFL. So now I had a choice to make. But then, since skiing, I was a good skier, I was a good junior jumper, and I would come back and compete and have fun in some of the big meets. But I had no chance of making Olympic teams and stuff like that. That's only 4 in the country. But I'd like to continue because I love ski jumping. And I was pretty good at it, and it was fun to go and compete and with all your friends, and you stayed around for the awards banquets and all this stuff. And I'd done that since I was 5, 6 years old. But football, professional football, you get paid. It's a big deal, biggest game in the United States, or and so that was obviously I wanted to try to pursue that.
What do you think you would have done had you not gotten drafted and professional football wasn't an option?
I have no idea. I would have probably gone back to Norway. I wanted to become an engineer, but there was a course called mechanical drawing, and that's the important course, or be good at some kind of drawing, but become a civil engineer. And I switched to what you call general business. Some people call it business administration. Maybe it changed to later. So I'd probably go back to Kansas City, maybe in the banking. I mean, back to Norway. Maybe be a banker, insurance. Who knows? I never really thought that out completely, because it turned out, and although people, I did it for 19 years. So, but that isn't. You don't know that. The first year I went to camp, there were 6 kickers in camp. They didn't have mini camps in those days, and some of them were pretty good. But I did win the job, and had a good year. And after that year, the coach, I qualified for the U.S. Army. I go to Fort Polk, Louisiana for 6 months during the Vietnam War. I get out of camp, see the newspaper for the first time in 6 months in late June or July, before my second year is going to start training camp. There's a picture of Hank Stram, my coach in England. He's in England trying out professional soccer players and rugby players. And also checked out some from France and Germany as well, and brought 4 back to camp to compete against me. So that's what I did for my early 3 or 4 years. But then there became a lot of good kickers in the colleges in America that practiced the same style as I did. And also, if you kick with the toe, they were pretty darn good too, of course. And then, but it went on. It went on for 19 years. When I started, nobody taught me steps. The other people that had kicked soccer style in the NFL, there was no ESPN, only 3 or 4 games, maybe 3 games telecast on the weekend. I didn't see, there were 3 soccer style kickers in the league before me. I didn't see what steps they took. I had no idea. I put my foot down, I kind of walked sideways. I didn't go through all this back and sideways and go through all this stuff. Just kind of, and from 25 yards, I just kind of tapped it. No sideline nets. It just stood there in the cold weather, and the fields were rough. And the league average was a little over 50%, but typically the quarterback was the holder. They kicked field goals in the pros for Friday afternoon for a couple of minutes. That was it. Then we changed. We got it to made sense also to break in the punter. They usually have pretty good hands. And they got not much anything else to do during practice either. And also later we got 2 practice fields. So we get the center and the punter, and then I'll probably kick, 15, 20 kicks 3 times a week. And I remember the first year I did that up in Green Bay. I think I missed 2 kicks the whole season. I made 92%, which is common nowadays. But even then, nobody ever told me to do this or do that. I just kind of, and late in my career, I thought, all you have to do is have 1 kick. It's not like golf. If you go and you knocked it way past the hole in your putt, can't do that. But in kicking, it doesn't matter how far it goes through the goalpost. So I thought you only need 1 kick every time. But then you go up to Green Bay, and the field is frozen in places and muddy in places. So now you had to start adjusting again and try a little bit different, mainly for the footing. So, but now I used to go to football camps and explain to coaches what I did. This is 50, 60 years ago. So they learned some, and then they taught somebody else again. And now the special teams coaches, they know more about those things than I do. They may not have can kick it, but at least, hey, this is what you do. This is how you line up. This is what you do. I have the only good thing, or thing that helped me a lot, both my main coaches, which was Coach Jim Sweeney here and Hank Strand, they told me that I was good. They gave me a lot of confidence. Anyway, you want to get the Super Bowl?
Well, I was going to say, what is your most fond memory of your time playing here?
Well, that's a good question, because I didn't really think for me it was almost much fun to watch the football game, because it was kind of a party to go to the game, and now you go in and kick field goals. You got the things to worry about. But I had some success, so I enjoyed that, because I kicked off really well all the time. Most of the kicks were not returned for any return at all. I was kicking a 59-yard field goal against the Grizzlies, and that turned out to be the longest kick, and it broke the pro record by 3 yards, I think, and 5 yards for the pros. So that was fun from that standpoint. But kicking is always a very pressurized job, so it was more fun to go as a spectator. But still, a young man to be on the football team, that was a big deal. To be a Montana State Bobcat, say you were on the football team, and all the attention and the big games, the crowds, it was exciting. Maybe exciting is more better word than fun. It was exciting.
When you first got to Bozeman, coming from Norway, what was the culture shock, or how did you kind of adjust?
Well, there were a couple of Norwegian, because the guys there were two other guys, Norwegian guys, on the ski team. So they are the one that got the papers from Norway and talked to the coach or whatever. And the guy that was the most instrumental was a guy called Tor Fagerås, Tor. So when the letter came from the coach to me, Tor had also signed that letter. And he had won the junior national championship 2 years in a row in skiing in Norway. So I knew his name right away. So then you hook up with them, and then unique is you live in the United States university system. Freshman year, you live on the campus. You go to the University of Oslo, for example, you live at home or you live in apartments someplace, and no sports, they're all club sports, nothing is connected with the school. So I think the system here with became they say Montana State Bobcat. You're a Bobcat forever. When you go to school in Norway, you go there to study. If you want to be in sport or go to sporting events, they're club sports that had nothing to do with the school at all. So I thought that was really neat to be able to live with all the students, go to the sporting events, be on the team that represented the school, go to the dances at the student union and that type of thing. So I think the college life in the United States is unique, and I think it is very special and exciting.
When you played in the Super Bowl, do you think that because you grew up in Norway and maybe you weren't a fan of football prior, that you didn't have as much pressure as some of those guys who had been dreaming about being in that moment their entire life?
No, that was after my third season. So I know what it meant to miss a kick or make kicks or whatever by then, and I knew the pressure was enormous. But I've had so much success before that, I didn't have too many failures. The pressure of then and now to be a kicker in the NFL, it is a lot of pressure, because the game's in the balance a lot, and it looks easy because everybody's so good, and the pressure is to be able to handle that. But I knew even in training camp, for me to win the job, I thought I could tell that I could kick the ball better than the competition. So I thought, if I compete, I'm going to win this job. And I was used to pretty top flight competition in ski jumping, played soccer my whole life on teams, so I felt I could compete pretty well. So no, my fourth year, I know what was at stake.
How did you deal with that pressure of you're sitting on the bench for how long in the game, and then they call upon you to
Well,
make a kick?
of course, most of the time I'm moving around, but sitting. I guess you just know it's there, and you get a little bit nervous, but I also remember and you're driving towards the field goal, one of the coaches, he had a field goal team. If you run on the field, I'm trying to find out exactly where the ball is to get the spot where the hole is going to be. I didn't hear the crowd. I didn't hear anything, never did. So I knew once you get on the field, I was not aware of anything at all. The only thing I was thinking about, kicking the football correctly. So at that time on the sideline, you get a little bit tense, I suppose, but that's the way it is. That's a part of your job. So.
What did it mean to you to get inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
Well, I didn't know much about this thing anyway, but then as I got into my 16, 17, 18 year, some of the sportscasters would sometime call me a future Hall of Famer. And I thought, wait a second, no kicker has ever been close to making the Hall of Fame. There were guys that had kicked and played, like George Blanda he had thrown 250 touchdown passes. Lou Groza was in the Hall of Fame. He was a terrific kicker, but he had been all-pro in the offensive lineman for 7, 8 years. So I didn't pay that much attention to that. But then in my 5th year, I got a letter from the Hall of Fame saying I was one of the 15 finalists. And no kicker's ever been a finalist for the Hall of Fame. And by that time, I had learned a little bit about the process because people had asked me about the Hall of Fame. So I saw the names and I thought, oh no, I can't see how this is going to work. Probably the first one. And but anyway, I'm down in Tampa Bay for the 25-year Super Bowl parade. I was part of the silver anniversary Super Bowl team. I was the kicker in that first 25 years. And that told me where you're going to be at a certain time at noon the day before the Super Bowl game, because the people that vote, they meet that morning in the town of the Super Bowl. Those days there were 28 voters. I think now it's about 48. Typically a sports editor from each newspaper and people that had pro teams, and then maybe Sports Illustrated and now ESPN. By that time too, ESPN, I think. And so I didn't hear anything. I leave the hotel. It's almost noon. I haven't heard anything. So I take off and I go sit down, wait for the parade that starts in Tampa. So cell phones were fairly new. So I'm asking a friend, can I use your cell phone? So I called my hotel. My son was with me. And the operator said, the line is busy and there's 6 calls waiting. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. Why don't you break in? So I talked to my son and he said, Dad, I was just talking to the USA Today. You're in the Hall of Fame. So that was a big deal, of course. But it wasn't until, and then I thought, so here I'm going to the Hall of Fame, the induction ceremony. How am I going to, here I make maybe 19 tackles in 19 years, put somebody out of bounds, or maybe made a few tackles. But they were really nice. Here's Chuck Bednarik, tougher than nails, played 60 minutes. Sam Houghton, Ray Nitschke, middle linebacker. They were so, seemed to be so thrilled for me that I was there, and it couldn't have been, they couldn't welcome me more than what they did.
So how do you kind of look at that now as you were the first, and coming from a background where you weren't necessarily a fan of the game growing up and weren't introduced to it?
Well, I had started looking at it, and so I watched some of the other good kickers. I had, in the stats, so you kind of look at Pro Bowl. See, in some of the stats, I was an AFL All-Star 2 or 3 times before the merger. So sometimes I don't count those things. So I was the AFL All-Stars, 2 games. Then I was won about 7, 8 years Pro Bowl, 4 more times after that. So 6 total. And the time between my first All-Star game and my Pro Bowl in my 18th year, that's 16 years apart. So that meant I was pretty good for a long, long time. And I also, when I retired, I had the most field goals in the history of the game. But I started watching it, who's going to be next or whatever. And it took a long time. And it turned out to be Morten Andersen, who I was a big fan of. I remember the first time I saw him kick, and that was before they worked the football. Who knows what they do with him now, but I know it goes quite a bit further on the same impact. Somebody that's maybe 8, 9, 10 yards. I'm not sure what they all do, but also they become, you know, at good fields, they do it right, and they become really, very seldom you see people miss from 50 yards anymore. But the first time I saw Morten kick, he was still kicking brand new footballs early in his career. And the first time I saw him, I thought to myself, I wouldn't like to see him in camp. I could tell right away that he was going to be really good. And it turned out that he lasted a long, long time. And he got in, and of course, both Morten and I feel that Vinatieri is going to be next. So, no, it doesn't take you long before you get into the pros. You hear about Pro Bowls, All-Star games, All-League, all that stuff. So,
out of all of the accomplishments that you had in your playing career and getting into the Hall of Fame as well, what do you value the most?
Well, the biggest honor is the Hall of Fame, I would think. They also picked a 100-year team, and Vinatieri and I was on that team. So those were big honors. I don't know exactly how to, because I also know I missed a few crucial times. So that comes back. You remember that when you failed, maybe it's hard to believe for someone, you remember that more, because I expected to make it. People expect you to make it. You should make it. So when you miss and let a team down, those dates, there's a couple of dates that I did that, and I remember those dates when they come around every year. Now, this year, January 11th was the Super Bowl IV that we won. Not too many people remember that. And only a couple of my teammates that I talked to said, "Oh yeah, I guess it was today, wasn't it?" But the failures when you're a pro, I think, not that it bothers me to the point that it dampens what I've accomplished, but they say, "Oh God darn, I wish that didn't happen." So those are the ones that stick out in your mind more than what you think should be absolutely at the top and be really excited over. No, I am very happy about that, but I don't really think about it that much. It doesn't come up unless somebody asks you, or certainly, of course, when the Super Bowl is played, the biggest sporting event in the country by far, of course I remember then vividly Super Bowl IV.
Gotcha. I saw that you once said that football was the greatest team game there is. What do you think makes it that?
Well, the reason I think it is the greatest team game, when you play soccer, other sports, you can have success on certain plays, but only one or two guys doing something special. In fact, all the 11 guys basically just got to do their job on every play. They're involved in the play, in most plays. And when you play soccer or some of the other sports, you don't have 10 teammates that have to get their job done for you to be successful. And that's true even on the field, you have the protection, the center and the holder or whatever, and also on every passing play, running play, as you well know. I think that's what makes it so great, that it is really a team game.
When you look back at what people remember you for the most, what do you hope that people talk about?
I don't know, hope that I treated people pretty well, and there was that my parents and my teachers or whatever had taught me to be a pretty decent human being. I think that's important, and I think they had done things pretty well besides football.